I've not got to this point, but I'm sure many have, where you get to the point where you can no longer make that distinction between higher self and ego. That the egoic self has reached an epiphany or a Satori-like moment where it just remembers that it is higher self, and so you just experience that oneness and wholeness. I have definitely not reached that point though. No way. And who knows if I will in this lifetime? Who knows if I'm supposed to or not? We'll see. And so the more and more you let the higher self penetrate the ego, the more and more complete you're going to feel. And I think we've all suffered with the feeling of incompletion within this realm. You know, something's not quite right, something's missing here. And communication with higher self can really fill that void. And so it really is such a beneficial tool to use in so many different circumstances for so many different reasons. But please never get to the point where you rely on your higher self. Don't get to the point where whenever a problem in life arises, you know, you're asking your higher self, oh, higher self, you know, what do I do now? That's not a healthy way to live, I don't think. One of the main reasons, for me at least, to communicate with the higher self is to bolster and strengthen the ego. Not to feed it in a negative sense, but to feed it with the knowledge and wisdom it needs to grow. And so you don't want to constantly be using the higher self as a crutch, because then you're not strengthening your egoic self. And like I said, in a sense, I think that's one of the keys to life on this planet. Not to kill off the ego, but to fix it. To fix the ego. At the moment it's broken, you know. But it can work in a very positive manner. I mean, there's so many people around the world that have mastered their ego, and they're still separate, distinct personalities, but they're beautiful people. However, ego manifests in a very negative way a lot of the time, in a power-hungry way, in a dominating and controlling way. So it's that side of the ego that's battered and bruised, it's not working properly, so let's fix it. And we can help to fix it through communicating with our higher selves, but never rely on it too much. And that's what I did at one point. I was asking its guidance on almost a minute-to-minute basis. To be honest, I know it's kind of bad. I got to the point where I was just in constant communication with it. And I was just using it as a crutch. I wasn't making my own decisions. And that's not cool. So yeah. Also know that there is a difference between communicating with your higher self and channeling your higher self. Communicating with higher self is everything that I've just talked about. Channeling your higher self is more about letting your higher self take control of the steering wheel of the physical vehicle. And if you get to the point where you learn how to channel your higher self, the conduit that is the vehicle will just be that kind of middleman for the higher self to talk through. Lots of people have learnt to do this in a controlled fashion, and then I think everyone else does it spontaneously. I think we all channel our higher selves. This is probably quite a controversial point, but I feel quite strongly about this, that we all channel our higher selves at some point. It might be quite a rare occurrence, but I think we've all experienced that thing where You say something, and it's so profound, so deep, so wise, and you catch yourself and you think, where did that come from? I didn't know that. I, ego, didn't know that. It's because it didn't know that. The higher self did. And every now and again, the higher self will just use the conduit of the body just to impart in a literal, verbal, instantaneous fashion. So just watch out for that. You know, when you say something and it just, wow, it takes you off guard. Well, I wasn't expecting to come up with something quite as profound as that. Think, sense into it. Was that my higher self coming through? Very possibly. It's the way I see it, at least. Now, I'd like to say that you should always trust your higher self, but be discerning. Know that it will present odd and questionable information to you. And this is often done so you learn how to make your own decisions, because you might think, I'm not too sure about that really. And if you know it's not just your egoic self controlling that thought pattern and trying to brush it under the carpet, if you know that you're being very still and present and you still think that the information that the higher self has just presented to you is strange, then maybe it's time that you draw the line or step up to the plate and say, well, no, I don't think that is what I'm supposed to do. And the higher self is very clever, because it will often present very dubious information to you for the sole reason to spark off a new train of thought within you, or to get you to make your own decision. It works in very mysterious ways, but it always knows what it's doing. So trust it, but don't blindly trust it, question it. The higher self almost works sometimes like a Buddhist cone. For anyone that's not aware of what a Buddhist cone is, a perfect example is the question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's about, will it still make a noise? Now, Buddhist cones are presented to Zen Buddhist monks as a tool to transcend the egoic mind, to transcend the normal train of thought. Such an obscure, absurd question is presented to you, and you meditate on that question, and your mind, your brain, your ego is forced to let go of the questions and say, I can't answer this. Another one is, what's the sound of one hand clapping? So the ego says, I can't answer this. And then it forces you to push up to a higher plane of thought. So that's what the Buddhist cones are designed to do. And that is very similar to what the higher self does. It will sometimes present obscure, absurd information to you, purely to spark off a new train of thought within you. So it's ingenious the way it works. So yeah, I think that's about it. Last thing I'll recommend is checking out a book called Opening to Channel. That's all about learning how to connect with higher self and channel it. It's a great book. I read it a few years back and it really helped me at the time. There's some good practical exercises in there. Yeah, and it's just a generally good book. So check that out. I think that's about it then. I've waffled on for ages, so yeah, this is going to be multiple parts. But thanks for watching. Again, I just want to reiterate that all of this has just been musings, nothing more. I'm not claiming that any of this is definitely true. Even the stuff I feel passionately about, or strongly about, I'm still very open to the fact that I could be completely wrong, or delusional, or both. Okay, so I love you all, and I'll see you all again soon. Namaste. Bye.